Hey everybody, this is your boy Brogi Naric, and welcome back to Brogi Naric on Film. Today I'm going to be giving my review of Dark Phoenix, or X-Men Dark Phoenix, which is directed by Simon Kinberg, who was, I think he's written all the X-Men movies, except for maybe some of the spin-offs, but this was his first time directing, and yeah. There was a lot of turmoil with this movie because they had to do a lot of reshoots, and production was backed up, and also the company that made this, originally Fox, was then being bought by Disney, so now this franchise is pretty much dead, and this is the end of the Fox franchise of movies, of X-Men movies. Well, I'm going to say this is the official end because I don't think New Mutants is ever coming out to theaters. I think they're going to just drop that somewhere on the streaming service. So as far as I'm concerned, this is the end, and I'm just happy. I'm so happy after seeing this movie that Kevin Feige can get his hands on the X-Men, because this movie sucked ass. I'm not saying that this is the worst X-Men movie. I feel like X-Men Origins Wolverine is the worst X-Men movie, but I would say this is the second worst, because they did this before. It was called the X-Men The Last Stand, which I know some people really hate. I don't really hate it that much. It's not good, but I don't hate it that much. And this movie is lamer and worser than that one, because at least that movie, well, I'll get more into that in the spoilers why I feel that way, but it's just like this movie just kind of felt a little bland. It wasn't quite as exciting as it could have been, and as an adaptation of the Dark Phoenix, it's trash. Like, they added some things that they didn't have in Last Stand, but then they added some other shit that has nothing to do with the Dark Phoenix, and it just really brings the movie down. Well, let me just start off with some of the positives. Most of the cast is very good. Actually, the whole cast is good. They just aren't utilized that well, which was my problem with Apocalypse. And I liked Apocalypse more than this. And I'll get more to that in the spoilers as well. Another positive. It ended. That's a positive. The acting is good, and then it's also kind of flat because there's not a much, it's not much gravitas there, or like not much impact there, because we just met these characters in the last movie and they didn't do anything, and now they're like leading this movie, and it's like I don't really know these people, so I don't care that much about this great change that Jean's going through. Some of the action is cool, like especially the stuff with Magneto when he uses his powers, which has always been good throughout most of this franchise. So yeah, they keep Magneto looking pretty good. Some of the stuff with Jean is okayish. Negatives, the story, the adaptation of Dark Phoenix, this is not good at all. The villain in this movie, fucking terrible. Played by Jessica Chastain. Awful. Just no. Some of the special effects aren't that good. Especially towards the end, where it's very effects heavy, where you got a lot of the Phoenix, the energy moving around. It's too much. The action is good. Some of the way it was shot, I think it was shot a little too close. It could have pulled back more. You could see it better. But the choreography was good. I will give you that. Soundtrack was okay. So yeah, things that really bugged me with this movie was how. It's really the details. The certain things, like how characters' powers work, how space works, that this movie doesn't understand, really bugged me. And like I said, the villains are bad and generic as fuck. Like, this is the most generic ass shit imaginable, which shouldn't be even coming out of my tongue talking about the Dark Phoenix saga. One of the best X-Men stories of all time. One of the most celebrated X-Men stories of all time. And the problem is, this is the second time you've done this, and you made it worse. Because at least the Brett Ratner one had some energy to it, and also it had the benefit of being the third movie in a trilogy where the characters I've come to love, as opposed to this one is the third movie in a trilogy, focusing on characters only in this last movie, which I haven't gotten attached to, so I don't really care about what they're going through. The love connection between Scott and Jean is very generic, and it was generic. Granted, it was generic in the original movies, but I got to know them. Seeing it generic again just really lessens the impact. And also, you had the romance more stronger between Jean and Logan, which you have none of that in this movie. The cast is so big. Who stood out to me? No one necessarily stood out to me. Well, actually, no, Fassbender was really good for the bits that he had. And McAvoy does his thing. There was like a moment Nicholas Hoult had, but I'm not the biggest fan of him as Beast. And Sophie Turner as Jean was generic. Ty Sheridan as Cyclops was bland. Nightcrawler had a couple of scenes. He had some good action scenes. Storm had some good action scenes, but she didn't really do much character-wise. Yeah, that's about it, really. And in terms of like a non-spoiler review, it's not great. If I had to grade it, okay, so I'm just gonna get into the grade. If I have to grade it as an X-Men movie in this Fox franchise, I would give it a D. I'd give it a D. As an adaptation of the Dark Phoenix, it gets a fucking F. You fucking failed. Again. So, yeah, it's going to be a while before we see the Dark Phoenix saga. It's probably going to be another 15 years before Kevin Feige even bothers trying to touch the Dark Phoenix saga. Because Fox has ruined it twice. And, yeah, that's all I really got to say for spoilers. I mean, for non-spoilers. Stay tuned. I'm going to get into spoilers. There's no end credit scene. Don't waste your time. There's no end credit scene. Let me get into the spoilers. The movie starts off with Lo Jean Grey and her parents in like 1975. They're riding in the car and she wants them to change the music. They don't want to change the music. Her powers start activating and it's like messing with the radio. They get distracted and then they're in a car crash and then both of her parents die. And then Charles comes in, adopts her, brings her into the school for gifted youngsters. So that's the beginning of the movie. They changed the X-Men, so the X-Men, which doesn't quite pan out, because the last movie took place in the early 80s, I think like 83, 84. This one takes place in 92. Yeah, so it starts off with this ship launching, and then as they're launching, out of nowhere, this solar flare pops up and it's interacting with the ship and it's like a tragedy. So Professor X is watching this and for some reason not for some reason, at this point the X-Men are known around the world, they're beloved around the world, they're the premier superhero team in this world, and they literally have like a bat phone to the X-Mansion and the president's like, hey, can you help us? Which I don't know why the X-Men would be the first ones you call. Although, I guess it did work out. So, Professor X is like, yeah, we're going into space. And Beast is like, we can't go into space. Like, we have a jet. It's not a rocket. But anyway, it's a jet that's now a rocket, and it goes into space to get the team together. So, that A doesn't make sense. The Blackbird is not a rocket. It's a jet. So, it goes into space. Granted, they're in space without any space suits or fucking space helmets, okay? The astronauts are in space in space suits and space helmets because that's what you wear when you go into space. These guys, they don't got none of that shit. So it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. So they go into space, and this is a thing that really bugged me. This is one of those details I was talking about in terms of how characters' powers work. Professor X goes to Cerebro, which is the device that allows him to amplify his telepathic abilities, and he can connect with people around the world. He uses it to connect with the control room to get information on what's going on with the rocket. And he's like, hey, and he's literally got the helmet on like, hey, everybody, this is Professor X. Can someone tell me what's going on? And then the lady is like talking to him. She's talking out loud. Oh, the rocket's doing such and such. Now, mind you, Cerebro is telepathic. The man does not have super hearing or a loud enough voice to reach in Florida or Dallas all the way from New York. It's telepathic. Why is he speaking out loud to them and they're speaking out loud to him and it's supposed to be telepathic? That bugged the hell out of me. If you've ever watched Young Justice, you would know when Miss Martian used her mind link, no one's mouths moves. It's all inside your head. It should have been voiceover, not them physically talking. That really bugged the hell out of me. So, that's minor rant. That's not even a nitpick. That's just not knowing how superpowers work. So, they're in space. the rocket is spinning around. They do this awesome thing where Cyclops, I don't know if they've ever done this in the comics, but like he uses his eye beam through a gun and it like fires it and he blows out the rocket so the thing will stop spinning. Then, okay, so then this is a rocket ship that's got some holes in it and it's been spinning in space for like an hour, let's say. Or maybe even 30 minutes. It's been in space spinning for 30 minutes. Sure, why not? Nightcrawler, and Quicksilver teleport over there and free the people. Storm uses her powers to freeze the hull, so the holes, there's no holes in it. If the ship has been spinning in space, all the oxygen's already gone. So Quicksilver and Nightcrawler are fucking dead because they don't have space helmets on. But they save the people, and then they're like, there's one person left, the captain. He's in the control room. And for some reason, they send Jean. I can't remember why. I think so she can, like, control keep it hold together because the flare's getting there, so it's getting hotter. And so Nightcrawler, so now they put a helmet on Nightcrawler and they duct tape it, which makes no fucking sense because he needs an air tank or he's just breathing in carbon dioxide. Anyway, so he teleports Jean over there. They get the guy out. But he tries to go get Jean, and then that's when the thing hits the energy hits the ship. So he gets back, and then she's just absorbing this energy, and then it's about to hit the X-Men, but then she does something and calls it to her, so she absorbs all the energy, and they think she's dead. But then, like 10 seconds later, she wakes back up. So that kind of takes away the impact from like in the comic where they fall out of the sky, or even in the cartoon, they fall out of the sky, they think Jean's dead, and then she pops out of the water, and it's that iconic scene. They don't even bother to do that. It's like, come on, like, God, it's such an iconic scene. Why would you even miss the opportunity to do that? And it lessens the emotional impact because they're like, oh, she's dead. Oh, wait, no, she's good. All right, let's bring her back. So they fly back, and everyone's happy that they saved the day. And at this point, Professor X is like a celebrity of his own. Everyone knows the X-Men. The X-Men are beloved throughout the world. And Mystique's got a chip on her shoulder. She's kind of tired with this. And she's like, the X-Men, it was a dumb line where she's like, it should really be the X-Women because the women are saving everybody on this team. And I'm like, yeah, I guess, but it's like unnecessary. Like, you didn't do anything. Granted, she's like the field leader for some reason. I don't like Mystique on the X-Men in these movies. It's stupid. But that was like a weird one-liner or whatever. So, oh God, what happens after that? So yeah, Jean's hanging out, and then like the kids for some reason call her Phoenix because she was dead and then she came back to life. Whatever. And they're having this little party in the woods, and that was actually a cool cameo. They had Dazzler in her like classic original Dazzler costume, and she's like singing and doing a little light show. That was nice. So they're doing that, chilling, and they test Jean. She's off the charts, and Jean doesn't know how to control her powers. She sees the fire, and she causes like a big shockwave and knocks everyone down. So everybody's kind of like, what the fuck's going on with Jean? So Professor X uses Cerebro to go into her mind, and then that's when they do the thing from the last movie where it's like he put some mental blocks in her mind. Although, unlike in Last Stand, the mental blocks was because she was too powerful and she didn't know how to control it. The mental blocks in this one was he blocked the memories, the horrible, traumatic memories of her killing her parents. But we find out that her mom died, but her dad was still alive, and he lied to her about that. And so Jean wakes up, and she's like, oh, you lied to me, and she leaves, and she goes to see her dad, and Professor X gets the team to go track her down, because they can't track her down, but Professor X knows what the dad is, so he knows where she's at. She meets her dad, and her dad's not happy to see her, because we then find out, basically, that the reason Professor X told her that her dad was dead, because her dad didn't want anything to do with her, like, because we find out it wasn't necessarily the mom getting distracted that caused them to crash. It was when Jean shouted out, "Be quiet," her powers did something to her mom that knocked her out, and she just lost control. Then that led to the car crash, and the dad was like, I don't want anything to do with her. And I hate this. I honestly hate this, because they unnecessarily make Jean Grey an asshole, and they make her parent, her dad, an asshole too. This is not from the comics. She didn't kill her mom. unless they rebooted that recently, I don't think they did. Originally, it was a friend of hers who got hit by a car that died, and that activated her powers. It wasn't like something Jean did that caused the death of someone. It was just an accident that happened. She happened to be there, and that trauma activated her mental abilities. In this, they went out of their way to make Jean seem like she accidentally killed herself, so she can have this unnecessary trauma to, I guess, add gravitas. But it's like it wasn't necessary. It's like an inverse of the storyline, because when she first gets the Phoenix Force, she actually can control it. It's over time she starts to lose control and starts to unravel, and then it gets worse when someone manipulates her. But in this one, it's just she can't control it, and then it just goes. It's weird. So while all that's going on, we cut to this random house party with these white people that's eating dinner, and the dog is barking, and one of the ladies that's at the house party is played by Jessica Chastain, and her husband's like, oh, go check out. Mind you, it's midnight. The dog is barking at something outside, so the husband tells her to go check it out. I'm like, what? I'm like, why don't you check it out? You the fucking husband. So anyway, she goes to check it out, and she gets attacked by some aliens. It's the most generic ass aliens you've ever seen. They're just gray and evil, and they're like shapeshifters. So now the alien looks like Jessica Chastain, and it kills everybody at the dinner party. It's just this weird like stomach warp thing. It was, I didn't get it. Anyway, so, and we find out that there's other aliens on the planet for reasons. And they want the Phoenix Force for reasons. The reason was they want to harness the Phoenix Force because they view it as an energy source, and they want to harness it and control it to help take over the Earth, because their planet was destroyed by the Phoenix Force. So they want to use the Phoenix Force to take over Earth to be their new home world. This just pops up. This nothing to do with the Dark Phoenix saga in any version, but they just throw this bullshit here. So they go see Jean. Jean, they try to talk to her. The police show up and she stops them. And then like she's losing control. The X-Men try to stop her, and Professor X is there, and he's like stopping the police, but then he's also stopping some of the other X-Men because he wants to let Mystique talk to her, because her and Mystique has a bond apparently. So Mystique's gonna, sit down and talk straight to her. So they're talking, and then something triggers Jean. She unleashes another wave of energy, and of course Mystique flies back and gets impaled on some stakes from the broken fence. So once everyone's after Professor X stops everyone, Beast was there, and then once he comes back, he sees Mystique is dead, because him and Mystique are back to being a couple, kinda, I guess. Because, they were together, then they broke up, and then they got back together. So he's mad. They have a funeral, and Beast is mad at Charles, which was a good scene. That was like one of the best scenes Nicholas Hoult has had in any of these movies, where he's pissed off at Charles, and everyone's all butthurt. So then we cut to this island. They don't tell us where the island is, but it's a small island. Jean shows up, and she's looking, and it's Magneto. It's supposed to be Genosha, but it's like the shittiest version of Genosha you've ever seen. Looks like a small shanty town, and apparently it was like given to him by the U.S. military as like a sanctuary. It's basically like a reservation for mutants, which is not how that works in the comics. It's more like Israel in the comics, where it's like his own mutant Israel, where it's like all mutants are allowed, and it's his own like mini superpower. The military shows up. Magneto's trying to keep it a secret, because he's like, hey, you guys can't be here, we have rights. And they're like, look, we're looking for Jean Grey, because once again, everyone knows who the X-Men are, so they know who Jean Grey is, conveniently. But Jean just pops up, and she starts fucking with him. She like destroys a helicopter, and she's trying to destroy the other helicopter, but Magneto is trying to stop her. And that was actually a good scene where when Fassbender was like not overacting, but he was like really intense. Like I really thought he had magnetic powers to actually lift this helicopter, because he really got into it. It's sort of like that scene where he lifts the yeah, that's what it was in First Class, when he turns the satellite and he like gets all into it and he like turns the satellite around. Yeah, it was sort of like that. Or when he lifted up the was it the submarine in the First Class movie? It was sort of like that, but more intense. So after that, he tells Jean to leave, and then Beast shows up in the jet, because Beast left, and he tells Mystique's ex-boyfriend that Jean killed him. So now he's all gung-ho to kill Jean. Although he knows how powerful she is and he has no chance in hell to kill her, he's ready to kill her. Jessica Chastain meets Jean and she's trying to convince Jean to come hang with her. So they go to this place. If this was the comic, I guess this would have been where the Hellfire Club would have been, but it's not the comic, so it's just a hotel where all the aliens hang out at. They all meet up at the place, and it's basically like 4 lanes of traffic, and they get into this big fight. They try to get into the building, which they had some good moments in it. Like Cyclops is losing his optic blast. Beast is going crazy. There was some asshole with dreads who's using his dreads to fight, and there was like a bald chick with telepathic powers, and her and Professor X are going at it. So Magneto, and he tries to kill Jean, but Jean stops him, and she like crushes his head with the helmet a little bit, and then throws him out. And then Professor X and Charles get teleported in there. No, Professor X gets teleported in there by Nightcrawler. He gets taken out. And then Jean is a dick, and she crushes his wheelchair, and then uses her powers like to make Professor X like a puppet and like walk up the stairs against his will, which all she had to do was just lift him up and take him up the balcony. So she's about to kill him, but they stop. And then for some reason, Jessica Chastain is an alien who's powerful enough to absorb the Phoenix Force from Jean. So she starts to absorb some of it, but then Cyclops comes and blasts her, so now she's taken out of the picture. And while that's happening, the fucking government shows up because mutants are now evil, so they arrest everyone because it's a Fox X-Men movie. The government always comes in and, you know, they got to do something. So they arrest everybody there, and they arrest Jean because Jean's kind of weak because she just lost some of her power. Everybody's arrested. Jessica Chastain is still there with, now she, for some reason, has a part of the Phoenix Force, which is not how that works. Although, I mean, I know it's split to 5 people in the comics, but it won't like that. It was like, it was much more thought into it than just, oh, I can just absorb this entity into me. Like, no, that's not how it works. It has to be you have to be chosen in order to take on the Phoenix Force. You just can't absorb it like it's... Anyway, so now they're on the train. Everybody's locked up, and then there's a bunch of aliens who, they're like super strong, and they have healing factors, so bullets don't really harm them, stabbing doesn't harm them, and they're very agile and they can climb up things. But what happens is all the aliens jump on the train, they break into the train, the military people think they're mutants, they're shooting at them, they're killing everybody, and there was this one guy, this black dude, who's like had a connection with Nightcrawler because he mentions to Nightcrawler, yeah, my son was a fan of yours, but not anymore. And then Nightcrawler's like, dude, let us, you know, let us go so we can help you. And he's like the last one alive, and he, at the last moment, frees them. They get out, they all fight the aliens. But what were their names? Hold on. The aliens were called, so yeah, this was the aliens, because they seem like the Skrull because they can shapeshift, but they're actually a race called the Dabari, which you have to be a huge Marvel nerd to know who the fuck that is. And Jessica Chastain's character is a character called Vuk, V-U-K, Vuk, who's like an old Captain America villain, who's like an alien in the sky, not shapeshifting, like literally masked. I'm looking like a human. I don't know why they pulled this character up out of their ass and was like, hey, let's put it in the Dark Phoenix saga, because it has no fucking reason to be in there, but it's here because we're Fox. Fuck you and good storytelling. Unless it's, you know, movies we don't care about, like Logan and Deadpool, because when they don't care, they actually make good movies, and when they actually try to make something good and they do care, they make bullshit. So they attack the train, they stop them. Jessica Chastain comes in, Magneto tries to stop her. That doesn't work. Professor X is trying to wake up Jean because she's knocked out, but then she, through the power of love, she wakes up and she wants to save everybody. So she lifts up the train, and it's all this weird CGI bullshit, like all this metal fragments, but everyone that's important is in a mental bubble, so none of the metal's harming them. The train crashes. There's still some more assholes, so she kills them. One of them stabs her, but she kind of died for a second when she came back, which was weird. And then she kills that guy. Jessica Chastain comes up, and she's trying to absorb most of the power, but then, conveniently, she realizes she's not worthy enough to hold all the power, but she tries to stop, but Jean's like, no, you're going to take all of this. And she starts to rot away. But then it was what was it? So Jean's forcing the Phoenix Force. Well, no, that's the other thing. It's not the Phoenix Force, it's just the Force. They don't have the balls to call it the Phoenix Force. And up until this point, the Force doesn't look like a fucking bird. So she's forcing this energy into her. She's slowly dying. But then Jessica Chastain's like, well, if you get rid of the energy, it's going to kill you too. So they're both dying, and Jean sees Scott, and Scott's like, Jean, don't go. So she flies in the sky and explodes, and that's it. That's the end of the movie. Well, the end of the climax, I guess. So everything's, I don't know how much longer it is afterwards, but basically you find out they changed the name of the school to the Jean Grey School for Gifted Youngsters, which does happen in the comics, but not in this way. And Beast is now running the school. Magneto, no, not Magneto. Professor X is chilling in Paris, I guess. Magneto shows up and they play chess, and that's the end of the movie. Waste of fucking time. Really disappointing. I wasn't expecting anything great, but damn, this was not good. Like I said, Last Stand was a better representation. It was not great, but it was better than this. Last Stand at least got the self-sacrifice part down, like when she like allows herself to be taken out by Wolverine. They at least got that part out, although in the comic it's Cyclops that's with her when that happens, although it's not him killing her, but still. I mean, she has a self-sacrifice, but it was pretty lame. And then when when it explodes, the Phoenix Force finally looks like a bird. And then they do the end credit thing. Not end credit, but like as the movie's going off, you see it flying in the background through space, which I'm like, what was the point then if it's already back? Like, it usually takes a time for it to come back. Anyway, it was fucking dumb. This movie sucked. There's no end credit scene. I should put that in the non-spoiler. There's no end credit scene. Don't waste your time. There's no end credit scene. I'm just so happy that Marvel and Disney are gonna do something great or something good with these films and actually put some effort into it. Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about the costumes. The costumes are ass. They look like Star Trek Next Generation cosplay. It's not good. It does nothing for anyone. It looks bland. It looks half-assed. Man, not good. Although I don't hate Simon Kinberg as a director, I would like to see him direct something where he has, he's got a little more experience. It's not badly directed. It's mostly the story structure that I don't care for, and overuse of CGI, which was not good. But yeah, that's my review. If you agree with me, if you don't agree with me, just like the video, check out other videos on the channel, share this video. Thanks for watching, and subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more videos. Peace.
Finish this thought. I am a slave to
the booty.